I want to introduce you guys to my new babies. This cactus one, this one. Then we have my two more. This one. I got 4 more because one of them died. I'm becoming a better plant mommy. These ones aren't going to die on me. Shalom everyone, my name's Zess and I'm taking you on my conversion journey. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and check to see if you're subscribed so you don't miss out any videos on my conversion to Judaism. Today we're talking about something that I've been practicing, but I also didn't even know I was practicing it. Throughout my years way before I decided to convert to Judaism, I noticed that a lot of the women were, of course, modest, but they also weren't so touchy-feely, and mainly with the opposite sex. That's just something I observed. I didn't know it was called Shomer Negiah. I didn't really know anything about it. But by going off of what they were doing, I just never tried to touch or hug anyone who was Jewish. And that was just me kind of being ignorant without actually understanding the meaning behind why they weren't so they weren't hugging or touching of the opposite sex, or even some of the same sex for that matter. So since I started to convert, I read more about Shomer Negiah. And in the beginning, I was like, okay, I understand the basis of it, but how am I going to implement this into my life and my practices? And I was back and forth with it for a while because I come from a culture where you just hug and touch everyone, and there's just no real meaning about it. You hug men, you hug women, you touch everyone. Until I read this article on Chabad.org, and I'll link it down below. So Shomer Negiah, what does it mean? It means refraining, you're refraining from touching and hugging the opposite sex. This is what I used to do. I didn't realize how I was intruding on somebody else's space. I just thought, listen, I want to hug you. I'm going to hug you. I'm a hugger. I'm going to touch you. And I didn't realize there are many people who probably don't like that. And I was just mainly thinking about my own comfort and my own needs at that point in my life. And I kind of realized this too, early on in my life, when I would just be I would see girls, I would touch their hair, and some girls would be like, why are you touching me? And I would just be like, I don't care, I'm gonna touch you. What's wrong with touching you? And it isn't until now, until learning this, that I've realized, okay, this has a more deeper root and meaning to it. So I decided to do some more research on it, and this article kind of blew me away. And in the article, she says, everyone you touch becomes a part of you. And my mother and my father, my mother was a virgin when she met my father. And she always explained to me how important that was. And of course, growing up in a culture where you're not having sex yet, you're not sleeping with anyone yet, you're young, go have fun, go be free, go do this, go do that. And of course, I followed that. I listened to that. And I thought that would make me feel complete. That would make me feel like I'm following the trends of what other people are doing. I'm touching everybody. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I didn't realize every single person that I've touched, whether it be sexually, whether it be emotionally, whether it be just a simple gesture, is a part of me, whether I like it or not. And when I was going through that dark phase in my life where I really didn't have Hashem in my life, and I was just kind of just in a weird space, I realized a lot of that was because I was allowing people who shouldn't have been in my space. I was allowing them to come in and touch me with their energy. And I decided, like, on my conversion, I'm going to start emphasizing and applying Shomer Negiah way more than I've ever did. And I'm realizing this almost 10 months into my conversion. And so in the beginning, I was just like, not like, obviously I never hugged the rabbi. And my sponsoring families, the fathers, I've never hugged them or touched them in any way. And then it kind of just became like habit from there. And then we were at Shabbat dinner once, and he mentioned it. And he was just like, oh, I noticed that, you and I, we've never hugged, we never touched. Are you keeping Shomer Negiah? And I was just like, I think I am. And by doing that, I felt like I was giving myself almost like, it was kind of like empowering to know that I'm able to separate myself from the opposite sex in that way and give myself that respect. Like, we don't need to touch. We don't need to engage in all this touching, because you're not supposed to be a part of me in that way. And going forward, like in my life, like I want whoever is touching me to be my lover, to be my husband, to be my children. And this is going to be extremely difficult because, like I said in the beginning, like I come from a culture and a family that all they do is touch each other, like, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do I implement this? Because to them, it's going to be weird. But ironically, like, my dad never hugged me. Like, my parents, my mom and dad aren't actually like huggers. I think this is something we picked up, like, in like American culture, because my dad, like obviously when I was a little girl, like he would pick me up, like, but as an adult, he kind of like didn't really do that anymore. I could probably count on one hand how many times my dad has hugged me. And one of them was recently because I went in for it. And that's just kind of like how my dad is. My mom too, like my mom like would give me kisses, and I will always like kiss my parents, but like for them to like embrace me that way, like it wasn't something I learned from them. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, how am I going to be like, without being rude to not only like my family, but also like my friends, their husbands that are also, of course their husbands are men, their husbands, and like just to show that I'm stepping into a more religious life. And it's not to shame them. It's not I don't want to make people feel bad, but when you see me, I'm somebody who people would normally be like, oh, Esther, hug me. Now, I don't want it to come off standoffish. I don't want people to think that, hugging you is the only way to embrace you. Like, I could have so many conversations with you. And I realized, like, by keeping that space between me and oh my God, my hair is all over the place. By keeping that space between me and the opposite sex does give you that wall of respect and shows like my standard as a woman. And people may think this is a bit drastic, this is a bit much, but there is a huge meaning behind touch. And it sends chills down my spine that every person I touch, especially, I can't change the past. Whoever I've touched, I've touched. Like, you know, I can't change the past, especially since I didn't have this type of knowledge or this spirituality or know as much as I do now about Judaism as I did back then. But going forward, this can change my life every day. I get to choose who gets to be a part of me, and I get to shape that future for myself, my children, my husband, and it shows the level of respect I will have for my family and my husband. And I'm being very careful with who I let be a part of me. And I do think like this world, especially women, would be so much happier if they were very careful with who they just simply touch. And I think Shomer Negiah might be something that's overlooked. And it's definitely something that stood out to me in my learnings. I think it's empowering. I think there's merit and value in this teaching, and it's also self-discipline. And I've always been a big fan of disciplining myself as much as I can, because it makes you stronger. It makes you more cautious, more aware of the things that you're doing in your life. You know, in the article, she spoke about doing what is right versus doing what is normal. If you look at the fast-paced world we live in, girls are all over the place. We have women naked everywhere. We have, you know, we can't control our desires. We are like attached to things, and we aren't really thinking through with the decisions we're about to make in our life. And you have to look at everything you do and look at what is normal and what is right. It's normal to go around and touch people. It's normal to go around and you know, look and engage with the opposite sex and not even giving respect to their spouse or who they're with or their environment that you're in. It may seem normal, but are these things right? And these are things that I start thinking to myself. You know, I want to be seen as a respectful woman. I don't want to be seen as somebody who's not controlled, who can't be trusted, or who doesn't have, like, I don't know, who isn't self-aware. You know, that's one thing I do pride myself on, is that every time I walk into a space, I try to be as self-aware as I can and just be on alert of my surroundings and how I present myself. And when you live in a world where everything is fast-paced, especially here in New York, everything is just, you know, and you want to slow down, slow your roll and just look around and ask yourself, okay, is this appropriate? Am I being respectful to who I'm with? Am I, you know, carrying myself how I should be? Am I following the Torah? Am I living a righteous life? Am I being the spiritual Jewish woman that I should emulate, you know, that I want to be? And that's the standard I'm holding myself to. And it's going to be very difficult for me. And I'm not saying that I'm going to get it right all the time, but I will try. And I think a lot of the confusion is going to, along with like when I get married and I cover my hair, like people just don't know. People don't like change to begin with. So I think by me slowly making these changes in my life, like people will eventually learn to respect them. And the toughest might be for my family to adjust to a lot of these changes, you know. And, you know, it just helps me view the world in a better light, to know that in this big world, I do have control over a lot more than I think. And if I could empower myself, if I could really establish a self-worth, it starts with touch. It starts with who I enter into my heart, my soul, my body, and where that will lead me in the future. So everyone you touch will be a part of you, whether you like it or not. And I'm not forcing anybody to do this. I'm not trying to say, everybody be Shomer Negiah. Like, you live your life how you want to. But I thought this was an interesting thing that I read up on. And it's really cool to see how the shift is happening in my life since I started to implement this. And I've seen nothing but great things come from it. And I hope you will too, if you do decide to go this route. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you are subscribed, and don't forget to check all the links below to see where you can contact me, and also sign up for my Patreon. I wish everyone a lovely Shabbat, and I will see you in the next video. Shalom.